Africa, birthplace of civilization, where humankind evolved and flourished based on a way of life tied to God and in balance with nature. The Yoruba of southwest Nigeria form a sizable representation of descendants in the New World. Yoruba culture, their food, music, art, language, and religion exert an undeniable influence on cultural movements in the New World. Into the Americas, Africans brought their sacred symbols, kept secret in their memories, dreams, and vision. Enslaved African youth were taught to keep these symbols and rituals in sacred trust, while the slave masters fought to destroy the culture. Syncretism, the process of camouflaging African deities with Catholic saints, also played a role in the survival of Yoruba culture. 6 of the major Orisha to enter the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade and to survive the continuous assaults of Western cultural oppression represent for the Yoruba descendants a model for spiritual self-empowerment. Yorubas were brought to Brazil, Cuba, Trinidad, Puerto Rico, Haiti, the United States, and other areas. For nearly 500 years, African descendants in the Americas have preserved their sacred traditions, passing them on from generation to generation. All Yoruba ceremonies begin with a libation to the ancestors. Omi tuto, ona tuto, tuto bogbo egun, tuto ile.
About 25 years ago, I was very much involved in drumming. And through that, I became involved in a group of dancers and musicians who all were following Yoruba culture. And it was through that involvement that my interest was this sort of peaked. I was sort of an agnostic in those years. I was what they call intellectual agnostic. I didn't believe in anything. I read about everything. I had studied a lot of different other cultures and religions, but really hadn't found anything that fit my format. I was more of a nationalist. I was a follower of Malcolm and Garvey and people like that. So that it wasn't until I encountered Yoruba culture that I found an African model, an African religious and philosophic model that I could base my life in, and the rest is history. The Orisha, as the name implies, translates to mean heads that have been selected, Orisha, heads that have been selected. The Yoruba and many other West African people have taken these ideas and through observation over thousands of years have formulated a concept which we call Eshu. Eshu, as one of these potentials, one of these power bases, one of these selected realities, is then a reality which says, by the name Eshu translates as one of the major translations, to mean that thing which causes things to gather. It causes things to come together. And it's more obvious when we look at some of the most vital symbols for Eshu, the crossroads. The crossroads then is a place where East and West, even though in opposition, have to compromise with one another.
In Cuba, Eshu is also called Elegua, but his songs are still sung in the ancient Yoruba language.
A shu is that principle in God's genius that makes everything have to deal with everything else at some point in the game. And it's this ability to compromise. It's the ultimate idea that God, the most powerful thing in nature, is the ability to compromise. That one thing must compromise with another in order for existence to carry on.
The Orisha Ogun. Ogun represents the energy that allows humans to create civilization. His sword symbolizes the cutting edge of technology, slashing away all obstacles that impede humankind's advance. He is a fierce warrior who is syncretized in Haiti as Saint George, a conqueror for and deliverer of his people.
Ogun is one of these very complex points in culture. The word Ogun can mean medicine, it can mean war, it can mean perspiration. It can talk about the actual Orisha. The areas that are covered by this word Ogun then are very primordial ideas about the ability of work and energy to recreate and create environment. This is very vital in a society. If you want the society to move forward, you must exert energy. The Yoruba, like many other world people, have an ancient and classical culture. They thought long and hard about what the role of the warrior was in their society, what the role of the warrior as doctor, the warrior as inventor, the warrior as explorer. I mean, when we think of Daniel Boone, nobody shudders and says, oh, but he was a hunter who was also an explorer. He was also a trailblazer. He broke open new paths. Well, every culture, and of course West African culture, they had even more ground to cover than Daniel Boone. They then looked to the Oguns of their society, the Oguns of their history, who blazed new trails, opened up new vistas for them, and explored new lands, came back with new medicine, new sources of wealth for their people. All of this then is what Ogun does in a society.
Opposite Ogun energy, we find the Orisha Oshun. Oshun is God as feminine power. She is pure, clear water. She spins and whirls so that life will be bearable. Beautifully dressed in brass and gold. Cynthia Turner was initiated as a priestess of Oshun in 1970.
My introduction to the religion was as a dancer. One of the things that really captured me was the beauty of the songs and the dances to the Orisha, and I felt that if they were that beautiful, the songs, the dances were that beautiful, then surely the tradition that they came out of deserved or merited more investigation. I always kept an altar for Oshun, even before I knew that I would become initiated to Oshun. Because I had to set up an altar for her, I had to know a little bit about what some of her symbols were and what they represented. She has like a number of symbols that are, in terms of the animal kingdom, you know, beautiful birds, peacocks, and quails. and pheasants, things of that sort. But she also has some very, very down-to-earth, nitty-gritty symbols. Catfish, which are survivors, or scavengers, if you will. And I think this also has to do with the whole idea of survival, to survive in dignity and even survive in luxury, if you will. You know, not just to survive, but to thrive. But if it's just down to basic survival, you know, she can do that too. These all are different aspects of her personality, or different ways that she may manifest herself, and doing whatever she has to do to get what she wants. I don't want it to sound cut and dry or callous or anything like that, because this is not really what it's about. But it is about survival. And for Africans in the New World, I think that's very understandable. And that's, well, again, that might be one of the aspects of her that we don't relate to enough, or maybe we don't even work with enough.